but they're in Florida needing points and they screw up like that. Come on. Anyway, let's go to Gagnon right away.
From the Bleacher Report, as we're going to talk a little NFL, as free agency is in full bloom right now. Hello.
Hello.
I'm looking for Brad Gagnon. It's Mike Richards
This
calling.
is him.
There we go. And once again, I'll tell you what, Brad, thanks for joining us here this morning. Of course, Brad Gagnon is the national NFL writer for the Bleacher Report. And I guess, you got a lot to write about because this thing is unlike other years where, maybe there weren't that many key players. Maybe it wasn't that kind of year contractually where players were, sort of tied to it. This year is just, I've been describing it sort of like a carousel or a domino effect because once they start to fall, this thing is going to be literally, the NHL talks about a free agent frenzy. This actually is a frenzy, Brad.
Yeah, particularly obviously at the quarterback position. And that's what makes this year so unique is that it's really the first time since Peyton Manning, and I guess that was 2012, that we've had a superstar or a star quarterback, a franchise caliber quarterback, elite quarterback, whatever term you want to use, on the market. Really, they just don't get to the market. And Manning was an exception because Andrew Luck came in and he was coming off the lost season due to the shoulder. And so even that was exceptional. And he was in his mid to late 30s at that point in time. Kirk Cousins is a 30-year-old quarterback coming off 3 solid seasons in a row. He was in the Pro Bowl a year ago. Case Keenum is a 30-year-old quarterback coming off a breakout season in which he was the 6th highest rated passer in the NFL. Teddy Bridgewater's on the market, and he's only a year removed from a Pro Bowl, or 2 years removed from a Pro Bowl season. Only 25. Could come back from that knee injury and make a huge impact in his career. You got Sam Bradford, you got A.J. McCarron, Drew Brees. Don't forget about Drew Brees. Probably not going anywhere, but he's technically still unsigned with 1 day to go until the new league year officially kicks off. So you just got those quarterbacks alone, and you've got one of the more intriguing and more unique free agency periods lined up that we've ever had in the NFL.
Hey, Brad, speaking of Drew Brees, and you're right, he is technically a free agent, but wink, wink, nudge, nudge, he's not going to be. He's staying with the Saints. If you're the Minnesota Vikings and you're ponying up some pretty heavy cash for a Kirk Cousins, would you maybe take this a step further and say, offer Drew Brees the 2-year deal and give him like $70 million. Give him 35 a season. Give him something that he actually has to think about, considering that window of NFL opportunity is so very short. And if you could lure this Hall of Famer up to Minnesota on a short-term deal, do you consider that if you're the Minnesota Vikings? I'm not saying Brees will sit there and say, yeah, sign me up, because he doesn't seem like that type of guy, but do you at least offer that at him, give him something to think about?
I would think so. I mean, there was talk, I guess it was probably about a month ago, of the Cleveland Browns when they had like $120 million in salary cap space, just saying, you know what, we're giving Drew Brees a 1-year, $60 million deal.
Yeah.
And that's only half of your cap space, and New Orleans obviously can't do that. No one else in football can do that. And obviously in Cleveland's case, Brees probably takes 60 over 1 year, but even in Cleveland's case, like, they're not going to win the Super Bowl, even with Drew Brees very likely next season. But Minnesota, they can't do 1 year 60, or they can't do 2 years 80 or something like that. But they could probably give him $35 million a year for a couple of years and guarantee it. And he's probably on a team that's as big a contender as the Saints are. I mean, Minnesota just beat the Saints in the playoffs, and Drew Brees was playing on the other team. So, you'd think that would be a temptation. It's something they'd probably do and may have done in the last 24 hours, which has probably sent Tom Condon and Drew Brees back to the Saints saying, listen, you got to up your offer. We've got a higher offer elsewhere. But the word is that he and his wife don't want to leave New Orleans. The guy is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, I would imagine, or at least will be by the time all things are said and done. So even $5 or $10 million might not be enough for him to move from New Orleans and Minnesota. This might be more so just a power play, a leverage play than anything else.
Well, I take a look at Kirk Cousins. We know he's the pretty girl at the dance right now. But as you know, in the NFL, sometimes that can be fleeting, depending on, it's what you did you do for me yesterday. So if I'm looking at Kirk Cousins, and I'll be honest, Brad, sometimes I have a real perspective on what I think a guy can do on any given team in terms of his athletic ability, in terms of his leadership, his sort of his poise on the field. I generally have a pretty good idea on quarterbacks. With Kirk Cousins, there are some elements of that I understand. But do I really believe that of all those people available, and of course, again, if we're putting him at the top of that list, I know what Drew Brees does, so let's forget about that all the previous answer that you just gave. Am I feeling better about Kirk Cousins or Drew Brees if I'm a Vikings fan? Who do I think is going to win? Who would I have more faith in if it was between those two guys? And something tells me, if it's just me, and we're talking about short term, right? I'm not talking about 5 years down the road. Next year, I think I would want Drew Brees. And again, this is blue sky stuff. This isn't real logistics, because I don't know necessarily if I truly know what Kirk Cousins not only brings to the Vikings, but any other team he should go to. How good is he?
Yeah, I agree. That's a valid question, and I think it actually opens up the debate not only Cousins versus Brees, but Cousins versus the perceived next guys on the list. The Denver Broncos are giving $18 to $20 million a year to Case Keenum, who had better statistics in 2017 than Drew Brees did, and was a higher rated passer, than Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was a guy who kind of fell back to earth in 2017. The whole question, what have you done for me lately? Case Keenum has a better answer to that question. They're the same age, and he's coming off a much higher rated season where he helped the Vikings get to the NFC Championship game. Whereas you look at Cousins, he had the big breakout year with a triple-digit passer rating, the highest completion percentage in football, and over 4,100 yards in his first full season as a starter in 2015. Followed that up with a Pro Bowl in 2016, but his numbers fell off a bit. And then this past season, his passer rating drops again, completion percentage drops again, interception rate, the highest of his career as a starter. Yards per attempt average, the lowest of his career as a starter. The interesting thing that happened there is Washington dealt with more injuries in 2017 than it had in 2015 or 2016. Also didn't have Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon anymore. They lost them in free agency. And so you look at that and you think, yeah, maybe he doesn't translate as well to other teams as we thought. He had a heck of a lot of support those first 2 years as a starter in Washington. Great receiving core, one of the best offensive lines in football, solid defense, good offensive scheme. Of course, he was overseen by Sean McVay, who became, the coach of the year now in Los Angeles in 2017. McVay leaves. They lose a bunch of weapons. The offensive line gets hit by injuries, and all of a sudden Kirk Cousins is average in 2017. That is a legitimate concern. And so I wonder if he's not even as far removed and worth that much more than some of the other guys on the market, like a Case Keenum or even potentially a high-ceiling guy like a Teddy Bridgewater or an A.J. McCarron.
When you look at Case Keenum, and you're right, the Broncos are on the verge, at least that's the reports we're hearing, of signing him. Is Case Keenum for real, or are we looking at Mike Glennon 2.0?
That's the big question with him. The difference between Cousins and Keenum is that Cousins at least has 3 years under his belt as a starter. Case Keenum is a guy who was a career backup, signed late in March last year to be a third stringer in Minnesota for, I believe it was $3 million. He's not a guy who was, even coming into his career was perceived as a guy who could become the dude, but he's got 3 things going for him. His best season, his only great season was in 2017. So again, what have you done for me lately? He's 30 years old. He's in his prime, and that's rare at the quarterback position. And just the fact that he plays the quarterback position in general makes him a high value free agent target. The question will be, is he Kurt Warner? Is he Joe Theismann, Warren Moon, those guys came from the CFL, but Kurt Warner, a guy who came from nothing, and at the age of 30, exploded. And Rich Gannon, a guy who wasn't good until he was in his 30s.
Yes.
Jeff Garcia, Steve Young even. I mean, is he one of those guys? Is that what we're looking at here? Or is he just, there's examples of guys like Eric Kramer and the Danny Whites of the world who had a good year or two out of nowhere midway through their careers, but never were anything special after that and were never special before that. And so that's the risk the Broncos or whoever ends up signing them are going to be taking by giving $18 to $20 million a year to a guy who we just don't know because we've only got the 1 year sample.
We're in conversation with Brad Gagnon from the Bleacher Report here on rawmike.com, brought to you by DKI Canada. I see Sammy Watkins. Looks like it. Has he already signed the deal with the Chiefs? Is that in the books? Is that official?
Well, it'll be official probably the moment free agency officially happens.
Right.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, they've all locked these things in, but they can't officially do it until tomorrow. But it looks like it's $16 million a year for Sammy Watkins, which makes him one of the 5 highest paid receivers in football. Rather incredible considering that it's his 3rd team in 3 years, considering that, his numbers have never jumped off the page. He's never really fully delivered on a lot of his potential, but he's still only 24 years of age. He's going to join an offense where he's not going to be forced to have the pressure of being the centerpiece. He's going to team up with Tyreek Hill, team up with Travis Kelce. Obviously, they've got Kareem Hunt in the backfield. They've got Patrick Mahomes who can throw the ball 130 yards in the air. I mean, you've got everything you want in KC. I mean, I'm worried about the defense, but 16 mil seems like a lot of cash to give a guy who might not even be the number one option, especially for a team like the Chiefs that doesn't have a ton of salary cap room. So they are really taking a chance here and rolling the dice. Allen Robinson signed with the Bears, or again, technically or not technically signed with the Bears, and that was only $14 million a year, $42 million over 3, and he's got a heck of a lot more under his belt than Watkins does. So that's where you look at some of these deals and you just wonder.
Yeah, you certainly do. As far as the Jets are concerned, the Jets are in the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. I don't think they're the favorites in it. What is the next step for them? I know the plan B as a Jets fan that I am is always Josh McCown, because he did have a nice season with them this past year, outside of breaking his hand near the end. Is there another option outside of McCown for the New York Jets?
Well, I think if you're thinking long term, because McCown's still short term, and I don't think they're necessarily going to be too competitive in 2018, but they do have the money to become a lot better. And it's not as though they were slouches, even though everyone expected them to be that in 2017. So if we're talking short term, yeah, maybe McCown's still the answer. Maybe it's a guy who could be kind of a high ceiling, become a starter, prove himself like an AJ McCarron or a Teddy Bridgewater. Those would be the most intriguing guys to me for the Jets. Instead of breaking the bank for Cousins, where you're probably going to have to outspend other suitors by a wide margin because Cousins is not going to be overly excited about joining a team that's not on the brink. Maybe you look at a Bridgewater who's going to be cheaper, who's going to not command a long-term contract due to the fact that he's missed basically the last 2 years due to that knee injury. Only 25 years old. Obviously higher potential than maybe anyone else on the free agent market, but also as much downside in terms of his career maybe never being the same. Or McCarron, who has never been a starter, backed up Andy Dalton in Cincinnati, looked very good when he did it, and is seen as one of the best backups in the league, who's now an unrestricted free agent. One of those two guys, if you were to team him up with McCown, or even not bring back McCown, sign one of those guys, and then maybe you go to the draft, you look at Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, one of those guys, and you at least have sort of hedged. And I think that's the best way to do things if you're the Jets, is not to think short term, focus on long term. You're probably not dethroning the Patriots tomorrow, and so go with a guy who's got a higher upside.
Well, Brad, the Bills, they've made that trade, so they're kind of moving up in the draft a little bit. But in terms of what they need to do at quarterback, would a Sam Bradford, or is that overpaying for a stopgap guy?
I think Sam Bradford would be overpaying for a stopgap guy. I think that would be, a team that is continually sort of, half measuring it, if you will, at the quarterback position, would be doing that again. And I think that Sam Bradford is not putting you over the top any more than Tyrod Taylor was going to have a chance to put you over the top. I think the team, lost patience, obviously, when it benched Tyrod Taylor, despite being in a playoff position midway through the season. And even getting to the playoffs once obviously wasn't enough for them to regain any kind of confidence in him based on the fact that they've now traded him away. They're clearly trying to make up a move into that top 10 in the draft. They're now into the number 12 spot. They've got the draft pick ammunition to continue to climb potentially. And if they do that, I again think they're thinking a rookie. I think they're thinking of one of those big four, Baker Mayfield, Allen Rosen, or Darnold. And if you maybe team him up with a guy who's got some veteran experience, again, one of those sort of secondary quarterbacks on the free agent market, whether it's McCarron or Bridgewater or a deeper guy, I think that's the best strategy if you're the Bills right now, rather than spending $22 million or 18, 20, $22 million on Sam Bradford, who, let's face it, you don't know if he can stay healthy. He's missed 3 of the last 5 seasons due to injury, or most of those seasons, and he's now on the wrong side of 30. I just don't think he's putting you over the top. So it's kind of a similar conundrum to the Jets, where the Patriots own that division. Why would you think short term? Think long term. Groom a guy. Have some patience, even though you don't want to, and wait this thing out a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So we know that free agency officially opens tomorrow. So all these signings that we've heard about over the last 2 weeks are going to be officially brought forward. Out of all the ones that you've seen so far, and we're breaking down teams, what team has impressed you the most in free agency, in trades, in improving itself, that you'll sit there and say, you know what, might be a team that's taking, I'll take a flyer on them for a playoff spot. Is there somebody that sticks out? I have one in mind. I'll share it with you once you throw me yours.
That's a good question. I mean, the thing is that I like what the Browns have done, but that does, the second part of your question, which is, does that put them in line for, to be a surprise playoff team or anything like that? That's definitely not the case still.
Yeah.
But I do like what they've done in terms of finally being proactive about bringing in some veterans. Obviously, to have Jarvis Landry there as a safety valve for whoever is the quarterback, to have Tyrod Taylor as an option to play the quarterback position. I like those moves. Demarius Randall, they brought in from the Packers. That gives you another, experienced professional corner. Whether he can stay healthy or not is a question. But I like in general what they've done thus far. I do like what the Bills have done too. We just talked about that, the Tyrod Taylor situation. The other move they made, of course, just to move up to that number 12 pick, is to drop Cordy Glenn, who was, a so-so left tackle who hadn't really lived up to expectations as a first-round pick.
Yep.
And Deion Dawkins is probably a better option for them on the blind side. So you move him in, you get rid of Glenn, you move up to the number 12 spot. A Bills team that was already making some progress with a 9-7 season. Again, I don't think they're dethroning the Patriots, but a chance to get back to the playoffs, I think that has improved over the course of the last week. And depending on what they do at the quarterback position, could improve greatly still in the next few weeks to come. So that's probably the most impressive situations so far. The one other team that comes to mind is the Jaguars going out and signing Andrew Norwell, who might be the best guard in football. They are already so stacked with talent, and to add a guy like that interior is phenomenal for them.
You mentioned the four quarterbacks that are sort of the attraction when we're talking about that position. You talked about Rosen, Sam Darnold. You talk about Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield. The interesting thing about them, Brad, is they all have an interesting little almost flaw in the armor. All of them, they're not perfect. It's not sort of like when Andrew Luck came out, it was like, okay, it's a generational guy. That was the feeling. But you look at Josh Rosen and his record, and he might be, I don't know if by perspective he's considered to be the best guy. I personally think because of intellectually, like that football IQ that he has, I like him at that position. I just think for Sam Darnold, for me personally, I don't think I would have hated it for him to stay another year at SC, because I just think there's some issues there. I think maybe there's a shoulder issue, but it's the turnover ratio that I just didn't like. Now Josh Allen, I kind of cheer for just for this, his story is pretty cool, but he wasn't in the toughest conference. And I think you probably wanted to have a much better record, much better body of work if you're Josh Allen. And Baker Mayfield at 6'1" might be perceived to be a little bit under, and he's got a little bit, and maybe it's not his fault, but he keeps getting this stink about him about being Johnny Manziel-like. And he's like, I'm not Johnny Manziel. I don't know why people keep saying that. But, there's some on-field, sort of off-field, and not to the degree, obviously, as Johnny Manziel, but he's trying to get away from the smaller guy, sort of big attitude and ego, which I believe you need to have as a quarterback. But all four of them, Brad, seem to have something that you could argue is a downfall. So it's going to be interesting to see, as these guys move forward, getting drafted, what those teams see as sort of the big plus and what is the negative they're willing to overlook.
Yeah, that's what makes the top of this draft, or the first round of this draft, especially at the quarterback position, so intriguing this year. And it just kind of adds on to what the intrigue we have in free agency at the quarterback position. In that, you think of recent drafts, right? And you think that Andrew Luck draft even, and who ended up emerging as the best two quarterbacks, quite possibly Nick Foles, Russell Wilson, and Kirk Cousins. I mean, all three of them came out of that draft. One just won Super Bowl MVP. The other two are obviously one's about to become the highest paid player in the game, and the other's already won a Super Bowl as well and is a solidified star as well. So that draft, you got Dak Prescott coming out of the middle rounds of his draft and becoming a star. Maybe there's a chance that Mason Rudolph or Lamar Jackson or one of those deeper guys, Mike White, out of Western Kentucky, becomes the best quarterback in this draft. Like, there's no guarantee those top 4 or 5 guys are going to become stars. And I do agree that Rosen has the fewest red flags. I think the idea of a red flag being someone who's opinionated about the environment and about politics to an extent is a very, very weak red flag, in my opinion. I think that the fact that a very cerebral position has a very cerebral player at it is a good thing. And I think he's going to have a great career. I think there's more football-related questions about Darnold and Allen. Obviously, Allen completing only 56% of his passes at Wyoming, of all places, is quite concerning. But you look at him throw the ball and you think, man, that's exactly what you want in a quarterback. And then the turnovers for Darnold, that's concerning. It would have been nice to see him spend maybe one more season in college and solidify that he is a guy who can be relied upon a little bit more than that. And so, yeah, they all have question marks, and it does cause you to wonder if maybe we're overvaluing them at the top of the draft just because of those supply and demand dynamics at that position, but also if maybe Oklahoma State's Mason Rudolph or the huge question mark of the draft, Louisville's Lamar Jackson,
right,
could end up becoming the stars of this class. It's entirely possible.
You know, very often CFL fans are like, but what if he came up here? Well, and you know what? For a guy like Lamar Jackson, you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's the perspective of the scheme that you run as a franchise. Do you think it's a fit? Because sometimes there are those offensive coordinators in that league that don't see beyond a certain style of play. So if you don't fit into that, and I mean, you know, almost a square vision of what it is, you can be a fantastic athlete. They just won't see you as an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, and that stubbornness is a problem. I mean, that's something that the league has to get over. I think teams that can adjust to their quarterback and complement their quarterback as best as possible, you can be successful. I think an NFL team can be successful with Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position if it's willing to work with Lamar Jackson and really take advantage of his ridiculous skill set.
Yeah.
And that's, that it takes also not just being flexible, but also being smart and also being ahead of the curve. Like, he's the kind of guy who's going to need to have a good system and a good coaching staff and all the right pieces in place. You throw Lamar Jackson on the 2013 Cleveland Browns, a la Johnny Manziel, he's not going anywhere. It is about being in the right place at the right time as well. Whereas, a guy near the top, like a Josh Rosen, might not require as much, or Darnold, that might not require as much. But if you hit it right and you get the right fit for those, a guy like Lamar Jackson, you end up in a situation potentially where you have a player who can really kind of transform the position. And we've seen it in the past.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more on that point. Hey, Brad, thanks so much for joining us here this morning. It's always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll catch up with you again, because this free agency is has been, and is going to continue to be pretty exciting until it's over. And then, of course, we'll be talking about the draft, and I think there's going to be all kinds of action there too, depending on what's available. So we look forward to talking to you again.
It's going to be wild. Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
That is Brad Gagnon from the Bleacher Report.
What? We just become best friends? Yep.